This is Mackenzie Shirilla, who became infamous as one of America's most unbearable young killers. Maybe you've heard her name before, but do you really know the whole story? After a horrifying tragedy, Mackenzie managed to fool millions of Americans. So many people believed she was just a driver who got caught up in a terrible accident, but some of the people closest to her suspected that there was a lot more going on beneath the surface. And, unfortunately, they were right. Thanks to a detailed technical investigation, detectives discovered that it was not an accident at all. And when her phone data, social media activity, and private messages were later revealed, the world started to realize that behind that sweet, young exterior was something far darker. There were deeply disturbing phone calls, hundreds of strange videos filmed while driving, and literally thousands of pieces of evidence pointing to a volatile, selfish, and extremely controlling teenager. And that was just the beginning, because what she posted online after the death of her boyfriend and best friend, well, that's the kind of stuff that sticks with you long after this story ends. Early in the morning, on July 31st, 2022, a car sped through an intersection in Strongsville, Ohio, going over 90 miles per hour. Just seconds later, that same car crashed into a brick building, instantly killing 2 people and leaving a third fighting for their life. The only person who survived that crash was the driver Mackenzie Shirilla. And as you're about to find out, this story isn't really about a tragic accident. Instead, it's a story about how love, obsession, and control collided at full speed. And from there, the internet and the public at large had to decide whether this was some crazy accident, spoiler alert, it wasn't, or a murder. So today, the big questions are, who is Mackenzie Shirilla? Who were the other 2 people in the car with her? And how and why did this whole story unfold? Hey friends, welcome back to my channel, Detective Jaxon. Today's story is definitely not for the faint of heart, honestly. I got chills a few times just putting this together. So, if you're still ready to dive in, before we start, drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from and what time it is there. Alright, let's get into it. Mackenzie was a teenager from Ohio who, on the outside, seemed like she had it all ahead of her. She had a boyfriend she adored, a tight group of friends, popularity, good grades, and a future that was just starting to unfold. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. Cracks that apparently nobody noticed until it was way too late. And when they finally were noticed, a few families got completely torn apart. And I'm not talking about just 1 or 2 families, I mean several. This is a story about control, young love gone tragically wrong, and a split-second decision that cost several lives. It all went down just before dawn on July 31st, 2022. You know that time when the world is still asleep, the roads are empty, and a dark, heavy silence wraps around the quiet streets of a small American town? We've all felt that moment, peaceful but somehow ominous, freeing yet almost suffocating with loneliness. But in the quiet suburb of Strongsville, Ohio, that silence was suddenly shattered by the sharp screech of tires, followed by a deep, thunderous crash. And just like that, the calm of the early morning vanished in an instant. Around 5:30 a.m., a car suddenly crashed into a wall going over 90 miles per hour, with surveillance cameras capturing the seconds right before impact. Incredibly, nobody in the area actually noticed the crash, so the debris and everyone inside the car didn't get help for nearly 45 minutes. When police and emergency responders finally arrived, they were met with total chaos. A 2018 Toyota Camry had smashed through a billboard and slammed into the brick wall of an industrial building at almost unbelievable speed. Honestly, the car was barely recognizable. Obviously, I had to blur the footage a lot, but in one officer's body cam, you can even hear him whisper, "It just ripped in two." Nearby, another first responder, a veteran who'd seen dozens of crashes, simply called it the worst wrecked car he'd ever laid eyes on. Inside that mangled heap of metal were 3 young people. Behind the wheel was 17-year-old Mackenzie Shirilla, somehow still breathing and barely clinging to life. In the passenger seat sat her boyfriend, Dominic Russo, who was 20 at the time, and in the back seat was their close friend, Devian Flanagan, who was 19. Tragically, both Dominic and Devian were pronounced dead at the scene. Like I said, with the responders taking nearly 45 minutes to reach them, any chance of survival was likely gone during that time. Once Mackenzie was freed from the wreckage, she was airlifted to a hospital. Reports said she was barely alive, with multiple fractures and several serious injuries. To anyone watching that scene unfold, it looked like an absolutely tragic accident. For them, it was yet another painful reminder of how fragile life can be behind the wheel. But when investigators dug deeper into the case, they realized this wasn't really an accident. To truly grasp the scale of that morning, you first need to understand who these 3 people were because, as you've probably guessed by now, the devil is always in the details. So let's start with Dominic Russo, just 20 years old. And Dominic was the kind of guy everyone respected. He had recently graduated high school, was super sharp, and had already started a few small businesses. He even had his own clothing line run straight out of his bedroom, a story that could easily turn into the success of a hard-working person. He wasn't the type to get into trouble. On the contrary, people described him as focused, mature, loving toward his family, and insanely hardworking. And of course, he was Mackenzie's boyfriend, which is a super important piece of this story. In fact, it turned out they had been together for quite a while. Honestly, maybe longer than they probably should have been, but we'll get into that a little later. In the backseat of that car was Devian Flanagan, a close friend to both Mackenzie and Dominic. Adopted at just 8 years old, after being taken from a troubled home, Devian grew up to be this warm, cheerful guy who could make anyone laugh. As a former school athlete, he was full of energy and practically always smiling. He had really pure ideals. Devian dreamed of becoming a barber so he could have his own little corner of the local community. He was someone who craved stability, but tragically, he's gone now too. And then of course there was the driver, Mackenzie. Mackenzie Shirella was the only one who survived that night. And as it later turned out, her story ran much deeper than it seemed at first glance. Born in 2004, she grew up in Strongsville with her parents, Natalie and Steve. She had just graduated that summer, but apparently, in her own eyes, she already considered herself a kind of local celebrity. To everyone outside her circle though, she was just another person. Classmates described her as outgoing and confident, and honestly, she just loved being the center of attention. Turns out Mackenzie even idolized Regina George from Mean Girls. If you've seen that movie, you know exactly what I mean. Regina is that manipulative queen who thinks she runs the whole school. And yeah, for Mackenzie, it was kind of the same vibe. Outside of school, Mackenzie was trying to grow a following on TikTok, posting her outfits, daily routines, and little relationship moments. Stuff that, honestly, might be super interesting to you personally, but let's be real, outside your circle, most people don't really pay attention. And that was kind of true for her too, though she did get a decent number of views. And as her audience grew, one of the brands even started sending her clothes and gifts. For a 17-year-old girl, that was like a huge boost to her self-esteem. And of course, Mackenzie fully thrived on it though, honestly. With her attitude, she probably didn't even need it. But here's the thing, as perfect as her online life looked, her real life was a whole different story. If you dig deeper into their relationship, Mackenzie and Dominic had been dating since the start of high school, roughly 4 years. But it turns out their story was a constant back and forth of together and broken up, since they would regularly split and then make up again. And the truth is, what started off as something innocent quickly became way more explosive. At first, Dominic's family adored Mackenzie. They even treated her almost like part of the family. The couple even lived together for a while, a classic teenage fantasy that, unsurprisingly, didn't survive reality. Behind closed doors, things were slowly falling apart. By 2022, their relationship was completely messed up. Constant fights, frequent breakups, and Mackenzie had started threatening Dominic with some really awful things. His family recalled that just a few months before his death, he often seemed unhappy, and Mackenzie was getting more and more possessive. She always had to know where Dominic was, who he was with, and why he didn't respond to her immediately. And according to a few of her friends, when things didn't go her way, she could get genuinely terrifying. Just a few weeks before the crash, he called his mum in a panic after another argument, and when a family acquaintance came by to pick him up, Mackenzie shouted that she was going to smash his car. Within seconds, she lunged across his seat and started hitting him in the face. Another video, shot around the same time, showed Mackenzie threatening to break into Dominic's house. And again, as I always point out in stories like this, while all of that was happening on social media, she was showing a totally different life, a cute, smiling girl with her perfect boyfriend and beautiful relationship. But the people who were closer to her saw a completely different Mackenzie, someone rapidly losing control, jealous, explosive, and increasingly dangerous.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
You know it. That's exactly what I mean. It doesn't. You don't even know exactly what I mean. You're gonna come open this door right now, or there's gonna be a serious fucking problem.
I can't. No, like you can't keep that. You can't keep making all these threats. Like I can't
And
open
you
the door.
can't keep kicking me out of a place that you say is my home.
Kenzie, I didn't kick you out. You took all your shit and dipped, and said we were done.
I did not say we are done. Dom? Okay, ready? I'm gonna count to 10. The door's gonna open, okay? You're gonna open the door and stop hiding behind the door like a little
From this video, it's absolutely clear that Mackenzie was possessive aggressive, and insanely controlling when it came to Dominic. Throughout the footage, she's threatening to break his stuff if he doesn't let her into his own house, and sadly, there were several recordings like this. The very fact that this video exists shows that Dominic understood the situation had already gotten serious enough to document. It also highlighted his worry and fear for his own safety and well-being. The warning signs were everywhere on her social media too, if anyone was mature enough to notice them. She was literally a walking red flag, to the point that any reasonable person like you or me watching her videos would think she's heading straight for disaster. It was obvious that Mackenzie was unstable, jealous, explosive, and increasingly dangerous. But despite all the warning signs, no adult stepped in. And sadly, as we now know, she eventually crossed the line where there was no turning back, because within just a few days, both Dominic and Devian were dead. The next footage, from police body cams when they arrived at the Russo family home, shows the heartbreaking moments when his mother realised her son would tragically never come home. And I have to emphasise, this is one of the scariest videos I've ever seen.
There was an accident, okay, involving Mackenzie, Davion, and who we believe is Dominic, is the third person.
An accident?
A car accident. Okay.
Where?
Last night.
Wait.
Just relax. Just hold on. Just stay seated. Just stay seated. Just hold on. Just listen.
Yes. Take a deep breath.
Christine, look at me. Take a deep breath.
Yeah, just take a deep breath.
Okay. Right now, all we know is that the driver, who was Mackenzie, is at Metro.
Right.
Okay. Hold on.
So yeah,
Just stay seated, please.
Take your time.
Please, just relax. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath.
That's okay. You're good. Take your time.
Take a deep breath. Okay. Is anybody else home here with you right now?
But Christopher, but he's sleeping. Angela's in Florida. Wait, where's Mackenzie's mom?
Okay. They're down at Metro right now. Okay. The other two passengers, like I said, was Davion and who we believe is Dominic. Okay. From what Mackenzie told us. Okay. Both Davion and Dominic are deceased.
Oh God!
Yeah.
Oh God!
Christine, just sit down.
Oh God!
Just sit down.
Oh my God!
Kristen's gonna come outside.
That's okay.
Christine.
Yes, just take a deep breath. It's okay.
Oh my God!
No.
Christine.
No!
Please.
No! He can't be! He can't be! What did she do?
Christine.
What did she do?
It would be best.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Is there somebody else we can call for you?
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Is there somebody we can call for you? Okay, wait. Okay.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
As you already know, Mackenzie was the only one who survived that crash. When they found her, she was unconscious, slumped over the steering wheel, with her foot still pressed firmly on the gas pedal. The list of her injuries was massive. Broken bones, internal damage, bruises, basically everything you could imagine. She was insanely lucky to survive, because by all accounts, she should have died in that accident. As you can see in the police body cam footage, her parents rushed to the hospital as soon as they heard the news. At that point, they didn't even know what condition she was in or who else had been in the car. And when she finally realised it herself, it became clear not only had she been in that car, but she was actually the only one who survived. I'll show you the reactions of people seeing this unfold with their own eyes.
Progress in Alameda, car into a building. 2 are deceased in the vehicle. Daughter's driving.
Who died?
I don't know whether, but there's one that we don't know. His name's Jacob. Does anyone know Jacob?
Dom?
No, stop. Let him talk.
Guys, I know, we've been dealing with this. Your daughter's okay. She's talking to us. I talked to her, okay? Your daughter's alive, okay? Your daughter's alive. She was driving the vehicle, okay?
Who's that? Jacob and who?
I think what's the name you said?
Dom?
Might be.
Oh my God.
Stop.
What's his relation to you?
My boyfriend.
Okay, yeah, then Dom was in the car.
Stop. Oh my God. What? Are you kidding me?
Ma'am, it's...
What?
That's where we're at right now. Okay?
What did she say? What happened?
It's right now, it's an ongoing investigation. Speed is definitely a factor. So were drugs.
And when she finally woke up in the hospital and learned that Dominic and Davian hadn't survived, witnesses say she was absolutely inconsolable. Apparently, she cried, screamed, and was completely shattered by the news. At least in that moment, everyone was fooled by Mackenzie and believed it had just been a horrible, tragic accident. But within a few weeks, it became painfully clear that something was off. Honestly, it was pretty obvious that something wasn't right, because while most people would have retreated from the public eye, Mackenzie did the exact opposite. We know this because after Dominic and Davian died, her social media presence skyrocketed. Her TikTok followers literally exploded overnight, all while she was still lying in a hospital bed. And instead of keeping quiet or reflecting on what had happened, she dove headfirst into her own fame. From that moment on, she was posting videos from the hospital, showing off her injuries, her wheelchair, even her meals, basically anything that could get views. In one clip, she even gave a little tour of her hospital room, smiling like it was some kind of celebratory vlog instead of a tragedy. You can just imagine the tone deafness. And she didn't stop there. Once Mackenzie was discharged from the hospital, she started attending events, concerts, even festivals, filming herself in her wheelchair the whole time. During these moments, people saw her singing and laughing, acting like nothing terrible had happened. And then came a video that shocked everyone.
I'm not even cool. I'm just one of those girls that can do a lot of drugs and not die.
So, as you can see, she was being filmed, and the caption on the video read, "I'm just one of those girls who can do a ton of drugs and not die." Her behaviour, her actions, the words she chose, they were downright cruel. 2 young men died in her car, under her watch, on her responsibility. And yet, she was joking about being untouchable. People didn't know whether to be outraged, terrified, or both at the same time. Because for the outside world, this was no longer grief. It was blatant arrogance and a disturbing lack of remorse. What makes it even more twisted is that around the same time, she was posting memorial-style messages. Mackenzie wrote on Dominic's memorial page saying he was the last person who deserved this, that she missed his laugh and his smile, that he meant everything to her. She shared photos of them together, wrote tender captions, and then went right back to her tonally tone-deaf, attention-seeking antics. And this creepy cycle of love and cynicism seemed endless. For example, check out this Halloween photo she posted just 3 months after their deaths. She was dressed as a corpse, smeared with fake blood, making grotesque faces like she was auditioning for some cheap TikTok version of American Psycho. Honestly, this photo made me so angry, and unfortunately, I had to look at it multiple times. You could almost say she stared at grief, trauma, and public outrage and thought, you know what, this calls for a photo proving my face is as ugly as my personality. Without a doubt, Davian's family was shocked, and his sister was so outraged by the post that she insisted they call the police. And honestly, who could blame her? Imagine scrolling through social media and seeing the girl responsible for your brother's death, flaunting it like that. So any public sympathy for Mackenzie slowly began to disappear. Don't get me wrong, some people tried to justify it, especially her parents. They claimed she was just traumatized and struggling to cope with stress. But most people saw something far, far darker, like she wanted to be the center of this story, no matter how horrifying it was. The rumors around town were getting louder and louder, and while the police continued their investigation, Mackenzie was basically fueling those suspicions herself. Soon, what had originally been seen as a tragic accident started turning into an active homicide investigation. At first, the police treated it like a standard car crash. Nothing seemed suspicious at the start. They checked all the usual factors: alcohol, weather, road conditions, fatigue, and everything seemed normal. But even then, some things didn't quite add up. For example, toxicology reports showed THC in her system, meaning she probably smoked marijuana that night. And when the police checked her bag, they got a surprise. It contained gear for psychedelic mushrooms, including scales and packaging. As for the car itself, one of the first theories was that maybe it had broken down or suffered a mechanical failure, like the brakes just giving out. So detectives sent it off to a forensic mechanic for inspection. And when the report finally came back, well, it flipped everything on its head. The report confirmed that not only was the car in perfect working order with no defects or problems, but the engine, gas pedal, and brakes all functioned exactly as they should. And that left investigators with one serious question. If it wasn't the car, then who was behind this? Detectives started talking to friends and family, trying to piece together a clearer picture of Mackenzie and Dominic's relationship. And that's when they noticed a disturbing pattern. Explosive arguments, threats, her social media activity. It suddenly didn't look like a tragic accident anymore. By this point, people were starting to openly talk about Mackenzie and her troubling behaviour. A few people noticed the warning signs, including Dominic's mother, who pointed out a bunch of issues in their relationship after her son's death. Officer notes from interviews mentioned how controlling and confrontational Mackenzie had become, and that both she and Dominic had tried to distance themselves from her. Even her ex-boyfriend told officers that in his opinion, she had become so messed up from drug use that she was no longer fully mentally stable. And honestly, after watching dozens of videos of her sticking a bong in her mouth, well, it kinda makes sense. Yeah, I think she was completely off her rocker. Just to give you some context, unfortunately, I can't show any of these videos on YouTube because of community guidelines, but believe me, there are literally hundreds of clips of her doing drugs, hitting a bong, drinking lean, smoking marijuana, you name it. And by the way, quick side note, where the hell were her parents during all this? I honestly can't wrap my head around just how neglectful they were in the year or two leading up to this tragedy. To give them a tiny bit of credit, there were a few messages between Mackenzie and her parents back in 2020 where they told her not to drive. Her dad even begged her, offering to take the car anytime, no questions asked. So it turns out she wasn't just reckless and defiant, her parents had zero control over her and didn't even really try to enforce it. Oh, and there were plenty of times when her dad even joked about her speeding tickets. Of course, warnings aren't evidence, and detectives needed actual proof. Luckily, modern cars record everything. Mackenzie's car had something called an event recorder, basically the car's black box. And let's just say, what it revealed wasn't just shocking, it was disgusting. The data showed that in the last 5 seconds before the crash, Mackenzie had the gas pedal pushed all the way down 100%. And the brakes? She didn't even touch them once. It was clear she never let off the gas, which ultimately put all 3 people in the car on the edge of death. When the car hit that brick wall, it was going almost 100 miles per hour. And get this, the investigators even found one of her fluffy slippers jammed under the pedal. The deaths of Dominic and Devian were now confirmed by the numbers. This discovery completely shattered any illusion that it could have been an accident. The only conclusion, Mackenzie hadn't lost control of the car she was driving it, deliberately, in a cold, calculated state. The surveillance videos tell the same story. At 5:34 a.m., you can see her car making a normal right turn at an intersection near a business park. She stops, signals correctly, and turns, like everything is fine. But just 60 seconds later, another camera catches the same car barreling down an empty street. The deeper the investigation went, the more a possible motive started to emerge. By this point, Dominic's family revealed that he had been seriously considering ending the relationship, but understandably, he was terrified to actually do it. With this information, police began asking themselves, could Mackenzie have decided that if she couldn't have Dominic, then no one else could? Investigators also discovered that just 3 days before the crash, Mackenzie's phone had tracked her right to the exact location where the accident would later occur. And there was no obvious reason for her to be at that business park. None at all. So why was she there? As we know, toxicology reports confirmed she had marijuana in her system that morning, and police also found psilocybin mushrooms and a digital scale in her purse. My personal question, why wasn't she investigated more thoroughly sooner? Honestly, your guess is as good as mine, but I lean toward the old-fashioned explanation, white girl privilege at work. When detectives finally started combing through her phone and social media, what they found was shocking. There were dozens of videos showing her driving recklessly, speeding, taking sharp turns, and even filming herself while smoking behind the wheel. This behavior wasn't new. It was just the pursuit of TikTok fame, performed by a truly dangerous personality. By November 2022, detectives were finally ready to move. That's when they went to her house, knocked on the door, and arrested her. Luckily, we have body cam footage of the moment. Honestly, the video looks completely surreal. And as the officers put handcuffs on her, Mackenzie acted exactly as you'd expect from someone like her. At that moment, she even asked them to be careful not to break her expensive bracelet.
I'm the one who's been investigating the crash. You're under arrest for aggravated murder ×2, okay? Nobody's gonna ask you any questions. Nobody's gonna bother you. Can I have your key, please?
Could you please be careful taking this one off so it doesn't break the bracelet, please?
You got it. You got it.
When Mackenzie was placed in the back of the police car, she closed her eyes, lay back, and cried quietly. And perhaps for the first time in her life, she realized that actions have consequences. Let's move on to the court proceedings. Mackenzie's trial officially began in the summer of 2023. By that point, the entire community was watching closely. What had initially seemed like a tragic accident had transformed into a courtroom drama that felt almost cinematic. There was young love, obsession, aggression, TikTok, and a devastating ending. Knowing that Mackenzie likely stood little chance against a jury, her defense team made a bold move. They waived a jury trial. Instead, her fate would be decided solely by the county judge, who would determine not only her guilt, but also her sentence. It's no surprise that the prosecution wasted no time presenting the full case against her. They argued that what happened that night was far from accidental. Instead, it was deliberate murder. Mackenzie was portrayed as a young woman who could not accept losing her boyfriend and decided that if the relationship ended, it would end for everyone. And unfortunately for her, all available evidence seemed to support this theory. A court expert explained that the car's black box data confirmed Mackenzie never touched the brakes and kept her foot on the gas pedal all the way until impact. In fact, it appeared her foot was pressed down to the very last millisecond. She didn't even flinch at the final moment. Investigators also testified about the surveillance footage, the absence of mechanical failure, and the history of unstable arguments between Mackenzie and Dominic. Friends and family confirmed the tension between them. Family friend Chris Martin even recalled a moment when Mackenzie said she would destroy him in his car. Naturally, the defense tried to challenge this narrative, arguing that Mackenzie had no motive to harm Devian. Instead, they suggested that perhaps Mackenzie experienced some kind of medical episode, maybe fainting or a seizure. Mackenzie also claimed she remembered nothing from the crash and woke up in the hospital with no recollection of what had happened. However, there was no medical evidence to support these claims. As the prosecutor pointed out, a seizure wouldn't cause her foot to remain on the gas pedal for several seconds straight. Mackenzie's trial lasted just over 2 weeks, and when the judge was ready to announce the verdict, the courtroom fell completely silent. It was no surprise when, on the 14th of August 2023, she was found guilty on all 12 counts, including 2 counts of murder. The judge even called Mackenzie a hell on wheels, a phrase that will likely follow her forever. She seemed unable to grasp that she would now have to face the consequences of her actions. Just a week later, she returned to court for sentencing. Families of the victims were present, and through tears, they demanded the harshest punishment. Devian's sister was no exception, declaring that the pain her family would feel because of Mackenzie's actions would never fade, and that what Mackenzie did had shattered their entire world. Meanwhile, Kristen Russo, Dominic's mother, spoke directly to Mackenzie. Her voice cracked repeatedly, revealing her struggle to process the situation. And this is what she said in her own words.
Mouth. This was not a car accident. The evidence and science proved that Mackenzie Shirella murdered my son, Dominic, as well as Davion. No one can imagine the pain of losing a child unless they have lost one themselves. The pain is forevermore. Time does not heal this wound. Mackenzie, going to prison because you did this. Be thankful that you're still alive and have a future, whatever that may be. Dom and Davion were robbed of their futures, their hopes, and their dreams. Mackenzie showed no mercy on Dominic, nor did she on Davion. Only God at this time can have mercy on her soul. Thank you.
Mackenzie even spoke for herself, but instead of fully taking responsibility for her actions, she said that she hoped one day she would be found innocent. Well, Mackenzie, keep believing that. I honestly feel sorry for you.
I'm so deeply sorry. I hope one day you can see I would never let this happen or do it on purpose. And to my family, thank you for the support and all the love you guys give. Thank you for fighting with me. I love you all so much. I'm done. Thank you.
When all the words had been said, Judge Russo finally handed down Mackenzie's sentence 2 concurrent life terms, 1 for each life lost. She received life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for 15 years. Unfortunately, because the life sentences run concurrently, Mackenzie could potentially be eligible for release as early as 2037, which, in my opinion, is far too soon. By then, she'll be just over 30 years old, while her 2 victims will never return. Another notable point, the judge permanently revoked her driver's license, meaning she will never legally drive again. Imagine being released from prison, legally rehabilitated, but still unable to get behind the wheel. Hopefully by the time she's released, all cars will be autonomous taxis. Even so, 15 years feels far too short. As one family member rightly pointed out, the victims won't be back in 15 years. They will never get a second chance. After the sentence, Mackenzie's legal team filed several appeals, but thankfully, the courts upheld her conviction twice, in 2024 and 2025. So Mackenzie remains in a women's correctional facility in Ohio, where she is likely to spend the next several decades. Meanwhile, her parents still believe in her innocence, as if a princess could ever commit something so evil. Honestly, I think this mindset is part of why Mackenzie ended up in this situation. It seems she never really learned to take responsibility for her actions. As this interview shows, her parents continue to believe she doesn't deserve to be behind bars for murder. And of course, the Free Mackenzie bracelets only highlight their delusion. Honestly, I don't even need to add anything. They speak for themselves.
It's evidence, one, that says she did this on purpose. Show it to me. Here it is. That's it. Then she's right where she belongs, and she's guilty of it. But there isn't any. There's no evidence what was going on in that car other than the information they gleaned from the black box information.
They don't know. There's information they didn't see. There's information they didn't have. There's information we didn't see or have.
Should she be in prison for murder?
No, absolutely not.
Should she be in prison for aggravated vehicular homicide?
I don't even know about that.
I don't know about the aggravated part, because I don't think you can still say why was going on the car. Should she have been charged with reckless vehicular homicide, 2 counts?
I don't even.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Not if it was.
And the thing is, when you strip away the names and the people involved and just look at the hard facts, it becomes clear that this tragedy was inevitable. It wasn't just that the driver had recorded multiple dangerous moments behind the wheel before that night. It was that on the day of the crash, she was under the influence of marijuana, had been partying all night, displayed alarming signs of aggression and possessiveness, and had barely slept. Honestly, she was in no mental state to be behind the wheel, let alone responsible for 2 other people. And the saddest part of all her immaturity, this all happened because Mackenzie was angry, impulsive, emotionally immature, self-absorbed, irresponsible, and reckless. And instead of calming down, she decided to channel her emotions into the car itself. It was this emotional blindness that turned an argument into a double homicide. The true tragedy here is the deaths of Dominic and Devon. And honestly, it's hard to put into words just how devastating this is for their families. Both were young, with their entire lives ahead of them. So, friends, thank you all for watching, and as always, see you next time. In the meantime, remember to take care of each other and, of course, of yourselves. Thank you, and goodbye.